New York Giants fans, there's been a lot of discussion about Joe Schoen over the past few days, especially with the release of the article by Jordan Rana, who paints Joe Schoen in a negative light based off of his dealings with Nick McCloud. I want to talk about it, and more importantly, I want to ask a question. Who do you believe Joe Schoen is for real? I'm Coach Gene Clemons, and I have a giant issue. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of A Giant Issue. I am Coach Gene Clemons, New York Giants on SI. That is where you go to get all of your New York Giants news and information. Make sure you hit that up. Make sure you go there. Always appreciate everything that's going on. And we are now on the hunt for 3,000. Yes, 3,000 subscribers. Go ahead and start hitting that subscribe button. Tell a friend to hit that subscribe button. Tell the person that pops in for a little bit to hit that subscribe button. We really do appreciate it. It really helps to continue to have this channel grow. And I think it's a positive thing. Also, a little programming note. Tomorrow, that is Sunday, January 12th, I will be live. I will be taking on fans who want to come on and speak about the Giants. I will be live. I will be live. What time you say? What time you say? I know what time. It's 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock Eastern time on Sunday, tomorrow, 112. I will be live. I want to hear from you. I want you to hear from me. We're going to talk about a lot of things. I'm looking forward to it. Come on, hang out. Set your alarms right now, 10 o'clock Sunday, right here on the New York Giants on SI YouTube channel, A Giant Issue Live. I really enjoyed the lives that we used to do at the beginning of the year when we were watching Hard Knocks. I'm looking forward to getting back to that this time. So definitely want to check that out and make sure that you're there for that. The super chats will be open. I'm just going to say that super chats will be open. So come help your boy out and patronize a little bit. I wonder sometimes if we just arbitrarily decide when we're going to dislike somebody or when we're going to decide to make someone the villain. It seems as if Joe Schoen has now become the villain. For a minute, it was Brian Dable, right? Brian Dable was the villain, and now it's kind of become Joe Schoen. Joe Schoen's been the villain, and I'm not here, and I'm really kind of bummed that some of the actions out there are making me have to come and seem as if I'm defending anyone because I've been out on Joe Schoen probably longer than most. I've been saying for a minute that I didn't like what he was doing. Like I didn't like the way he was drafting. I didn't like the way he was going about his business with free agency and with the construction of this roster. I got killed numerous times for me saying, hey, these roster moves that he's making, they're terrible. And people telling me like Skinner and some of the other content creators out here going, well, I'm just stupid and I don't understand roster construction. I don't understand these things and I let them rock because like when people don't have a real legitimate like response, when their response is simply just, oh, well, you just don't understand. When they start questioning your intelligence, that's when the conversation is over because at that point, you know that there's no common respect. So I don't engage when it becomes that. Like when that becomes the thing, then I know. The same way that when I see that someone is responding strictly and totally off of emotion, I can no longer have the discourse with them because I'm not coming at this thing from an emotional standpoint. I'm passionate, yes, because I'm passionate about football, but I'm not so emotionally blinded that I can't see other things. I have been accused lately of being emotionally invested in Shadur Sanders being drafted by the Giants. That couldn't be further from the truth. I'm invested in the Giants getting the best quarterback in the draft. And to me, I can't speak for you guys, it's Shadur Sanders. But if they were to get Cam Ward, I would be fine with that. If they were to draft Jackson Dart in the first round, I would call it a mistake. I would tell them that they're drafting like the next Daniel Jones. If they would have like drafted a Drew Aller in the first round, like so many in the Giants world believe that they should, I would have called it a mistake. I would have said that they're drafting another Daniel Jones. I got killed for calling Drew Aller Daniel Jones, only to then go out and watch Drew Aller do his best Daniel Jones impression. Be underwhelming, mediocre for most of the game, get lucky with some interceptions that ended up not being interceptions, and then when the game was on the line, fold like a lawn chair, fold like a partition, fold like a origami. That's what Drew Aller did. And then afterwards, like conveniently, all of the Drew Aller people started talking about Shadur Sanders and how Shadur Sanders played poorly against BYU. And I'm here to tell you that's cool, but Shadur Sanders played poorly against BYU with Colorado. He didn't play for Penn State. If Shadur Sanders played for Penn State's probably winning the national championship this year, because that's the level of talent as a quarterback. Is Drew Aller taller than Shadur Sanders? Yes. Is Drew Aller's 40 times faster than Shadur Sanders? Maybe. Does Drew Aller run better than Shadur Sanders? No. Is Drew Aller tougher than Shadur Sanders? No. Can Drew Aller throw a football further than Shadur Sanders? Yes. Is he as accurate? No. Does he throw with anticipation? No. Oh, well, Shadur Sanders has better wide receivers. Says who? Outside of Travis Hunter, who is all world, right? All gadget, all defense, all offense, all whatever he wants to be. Outside of Travis Hunter, he throws to everyone. Not one of those wide receivers that he throws to, none of them are slated to be first-round draft picks. None of them. There is not one offensive weapon outside of Travis Hunter that is going to be a first-round draft pick or even has a chance to be a first-round draft pick. You know who has a chance, or who knows going to be a first-round draft pick for Penn State? Their tight end. He's all world. He shouldn't get past the first 10 picks. He might, but he shouldn't. They've got two running backs who are phenomenal. Both of them have an opportunity on an upward trajectory to possibly be a first-round draft pick, maybe even a second-round draft pick. They have talent, and their offensive line is phenomenal compared to Colorado's offensive line. And yet, people got caught up in the hype of Drew Aller based off of games, right? A couple games where they scored touchdowns. They didn't watch. The number one criticism I get when people are arguing with me is, well, if you watched the games, and that's when I know that this argument's not going to go anywhere. Because if you think I'm not watching, then you clearly haven't been paying attention. All I do is this sports thing. My life is surrounded by sports. They don't call me Coach Gene Clemons because I just decided to name myself Coach Gene Clemons. I do this. I look at this game so much different than so many people out there. And while I respect fandom, I understand what I'm seeing. And that is why the issue with Joe Schoen is so comical to me right now. For all of you that don't know, Joe Schoen, there was a report that came out. And first, let me say, I grew up in journalism. I was a journalism major in college. I am well schooled, well versed in journalism. I consider myself to be a journalist at my heart. My one of the things that I love doing most is telling stories. Right? That's the job of the journalist is to give the information to the people in journal in story form, right? And I love doing that. So let me just tell you, as a journalist who understands how this thing works, I absolutely despise anonymous sources. Anonymous sources are, to me, in my experience, because I've had them, I've seen them, I know people who have them, I know who they are. Anonymous sources are one side wanting to get their point across without having to tell people it's their side. But if you just read between the lines, it would make sense. So it says before the start of week 4, this is Jordan Rana's, an excerpt from Jordan Rana's, Rannan, excuse me, or Ronan Rannan. I'm not exactly sure, but I will find out. Let me know in the chat. Jordan Rannan's article about Joe Schoen and Nick McCloud, the cornerback who was released in the middle of the year, that got a little bit of not backlash, but a little bit of surprise from people. Nick McCloud, by the way, who was a guy who was brought on the team to be a backup, wasn't supposed to be like a real major factor, was here just for depth. But at the time, I believe was starting because there had been injuries. So this excerpt says, before the start of week 4, of a week 4 game against the Cowboys, the Giants wanted McCloud to take a pay cut from the 1-year, $2.98 million deal he signed as a restricted free agent in the offseason, according to a player source. Now, if it's according to a player source, what player? Is the player Nick McCloud? If the player is somebody on the team, how do they know? They weren't in the room with Nick McCloud and Joe Schoen. They weren't on the phone with Joe Schoen and Nick McCloud's agent. So the only way that a player would know this is if Nick McCloud himself told them, and or if it's just Nick McCloud, right? If we're assuming that when they say according to a player source, they're saying that a player is the source, it's Nick McCloud, ladies and gentlemen, or it's another player who Nick McCloud told this story to. So understand that we're either getting this story directly from Nick McCloud or we're getting it from somebody who Nick McCloud told. So we only have one side. Okay. McCloud wanted to remain with the Giants, but on his current deal, McCloud said, F out of here. I've got a contract. I want to stay with the team, but I ain't trying to give y'all back no money. Asking him to take a pay cut during the season before a game he was set to start was bold and unusual, according to multiple executives around the league. No, it's not. We've seen reports of people who are starters being told to take, or being asked, to take pay cuts in the middle of a season in order to, for whatever, right? But to act as if Nick McCloud was a genuine and weekly starter on the New York Giants is to be disingenuous. He was not. He is not. He has never been. Right? According to multiple Giants players, Schoen told Cloud's representatives again, how do multiple Giants players know this? The only way to know this is if Nick McCloud told players that Joe Schoen told McCloud's representatives. The only way for them to know this is if Nick McCloud's representatives told them that Joe Schoen told McCloud's representatives this. There is no way that Joe Schoen told any of these players this. That's not how it goes down. That would be illegal. That would be illegal. I don't think Joe Schoen's going to risk his job and reputation in the industry to tell some players about what he's doing with another player. According to multiple Giants players, Joe Schoen told McCloud's representatives, don't pay October's rent, all right? As soon as I can replace him, I'm going to replace him. I'm not effing around. Now, it says the Giants general manager hung up the phone. What else was he supposed to say after that? He told you what it was. You may not have liked what he said, but he told you what he said. If Joe Schoen is saying, hey, Nick McCloud, we're going to cut you. We're going to cut you. But if you want to stay, we need you to give back money. Right? If that's what he said, because we don't know. We have to be fair in these things. I've seen people talking and everybody is just running with the story as if this is exactly how it was said and structured. And they're doing that off of a reporter who is getting third-hand information, second-hand at best. Second-hand at best, third-hand most likely, maybe even fourth-hand information. We're just assuming that is true. Now, I personally think this conversation happened. I, however, have a sneaking suspicion that it did not happen the way it's laid out. If you tell me, right, you want me to take a pay cut from my already small deal that's only 1 year, I'm going to tell you, like, nah, get the F out of here. Nah, I ain't doing all that, right? If I tell you that and your response is, hey, man, okay, just don't pay October's rent, right? Because as soon as I can replace him, I'm going to replace him. I'm not around, right? Like, if that's the way he worded it, then I can understand it. Hey, man, don't pay October's rent. Because as soon as I can get him out of here, I'm going to get him out of here. I'm just being, like, we always say that we want people to be honest with us, right? And then when they're honest, we try to call them names. But my problem is this is who Joe Schoen has been. I was on here when I first started this podcast, before I started this podcast, when I used to talk to, or when I've been on with Patricia Traynor on the Locked On Giants podcast, and I talked about Joe Schoen, I said, hey, Joe Schoen had a cornerback as a starter who had signed a contract. It was not his guy. Signed the contract, had money. Joe Schoen wanted that man to take a pay cut. That man did not want to take a pay cut. So he held him hostage until all free agency was over, until most of the money was spent. He held him hostage and then let him go. That guy who Joe Schoen said wasn't worth the money, right? Walked right over to Philadelphia, became an All-Pro. Philadelphia went to the Super Bowl. Who cares what happens the years after that? That's not important. That very next year, when the Giants could have used better cornerback production, that better cornerback production was in Philadelphia, helping them get to a Super Bowl. The same Joe Schoen told a homegrown Love, right? Hey, Love, we like you, but we like you at this number. You should go out there and see if somebody likes you more at a better number. That doesn't really sound as if like you really want me back. So Julian Love goes out and finds Seattle, who loves him, and pays him accordingly. Doubles back. Giants don't want to give him that. He moves on. Pro Bowl performance loading. He's been one of the best safeties in the league since. Homegrown talent. Joe Schoen didn't think he was worthy. Joe Schoen didn't think he was worth the money. So he lets him go. Xavier McKinney, homegrown talent. The Giants using, by the way, in all of these situations, using the same media that are now trying to come for his head, using those same people, manipulated fans into believing that McKinney was lazy, that McKinney didn't work hard, that McKinney didn't care about winning, that McKinney was taking plays off. None of the stats supported it. None of the stats supported it. None of the talk from his teammates supported it. None of his play when I watched him on the field supported it. And yet they were able to get that off to the point where when Xavier McKinney wanted to be paid like one of the best safeties in the game, Giants fans laughed. And Joe Schoen said, hey, man, go find whatever it is you think you can find out there in the world. And he did. The Packers, a playoff team, right? A playoff team now, gave him the contract that the Giants didn't want to give him. And what did he do? He went out and had a first team All-Pro, not first team Pro Bowl, first team All-Pro season. And now I'm sorry, I didn't finish. Jackson, a cornerback brought in by the previous regime, by the previous general manager, on the last year of his contract. No contract extension for him. They made it known in no uncertain terms that this was going to be his last season as a Giant when he was on his final contract. His contract comes up. His contract is up. They let him go. They don't sign anyone to replace him. They don't bring in anyone in the draft. They re-sign him late and give his number to a rookie that's playing in the slot. A lot of love, a lot of care. So now he doesn't get the entire offseason to learn a new defense. He has to come in and, to his credit, has played major significant minutes as a starting corner after they convinced everyone out there that he was done, that he was toast. Whether or not he is great or just okay is inconsequential. Ladies and gentlemen, the number one issue that the New York Giants have is in the secondary. Don't let people gas you into believing it's on the defensive line. It's not. The number one issue is in the secondary. Do you know how many draft picks the New York Giants have spent on secondary? You see the way that Joe Schoen has just flippantly passed off all of this elite level defensive back talent to bring in mediocre to decent defensive back talent. And the entire time he did it with a cold, like guillotine-like chop to it. And now you guys want to be mad over Nick McCloud? This is who Joe Schoen is. This is the same Joe Schoen that has let go talent after talent after talent because they were not his talents, because they may have costed $1 million more. This is the Joe Schoen who sat here with a straight face on national TV and said, well, we may not be able to trade Saquon Barkley. What? What? You might not be able to trade one of the best running backs in the league? Well, I don't know if we would be willing to pay $5 million. Out of his mouth, he said that. In no uncertain terms, he said that he didn't think that Saquon Barkley was worth more than $5 million. And that he didn't know if he'd be willing to pay that. Cold, calculated, whether you like it or whether you don't like it, this is who he's been. It has never looked like he gave a damn about any of these players. So why, oh why, are people now spazzing over Nick McCloud, who did not play well, who was not a starter, who was not a long-term member of the team, and was not a part of the future of this team? I don't have anything against Nick McCloud, but this should not be where you guys started drawing a line in the sand, talking about how horrible Joe Schoen was. This is convenient because of the season that the Giants have, and now your feelings about what they did with bringing these guys back. But he's been this forever. He's been bad since he took the job. He's been this type of cold and maniacal from the moment he took the job. Why are we acting as if this is something brand new? I have no clue. I have no understanding. It does not make any sense to me. I don't know what happened with him and the media, but watching the media, a lot of which were doing the legwork of pushing the narratives that he wanted pushed, watching them now turn on him and try to make him seem like the villain is some dirty work. If people will tell you anything about journalism, especially what this would be considered, which is community journalism, because it's a community that they're really like feeding to, right? The Giants community, is that you should be moving heaven and earth to not burn sources, right? And the only way you don't care about burning the source is if the truth is involved. And ladies and gentlemen, nobody can say for a fact the conversation between Joe Schoen and Nick McCloud's representation. Nobody can say for certain what went down. The only thing we would ever get is Nick McCloud's version, because Joe Schoen is never going to come out and talk about what happened with Nick McCloud. He's never going to do it. That's not a reason to burn the source. That's not a reason to all of a sudden lose the trust and the that you're going to be fair and impartial, which is what you're supposed to be as a journalist, right? There's no reason to do that. It's weird. It's almost as if Joe Schoen and Brian Dable did something to them, right? Maybe lessened their access or like decided to stop talking to them. And they went, ooh, I'll show you, like a jaded lover. It's really weird and it's really corny. It's why I don't do that type of journalism. I don't do tabloidism. I don't do, an anonymous source told me this. But this is who Joe Schoen is. Like, he's been unlikable from the beginning. Why are people now acting as if they just found out he was unlikable? There was nothing likable about him from the beginning. I didn't even like the way he talked with his kids. I don't like the way he conducted his meetings. All of it felt very it's me, I'm him. It all stops at me. I make the decisions. You guys are just here. None of it sounded collaborative and inclusive like it should sound in those places, because the guy that's usually behind the desk is the guy that knows the least. Right? The guy that's usually behind that desk is the guy that knows the least. He's usually not the best scout. He's usually not the best money man. He's usually not the best personnel evaluator. He is usually the best at seeing the big picture. But it doesn't even seem as if Joe Schoen is the greatest at doing that. So I don't know why everybody's all of a sudden upset, all of a sudden like caught off guard. This is who he is. Accept it, because he's not going anywhere. Ta-da! Ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time I have. New York Giants on SI. That is where you get all of your New York Giants news and information. Make sure you go there. Make sure that you subscribe to the New York Giants on SI YouTube page so that you know anytime I'm dropping a Giant issue. And don't forget, tomorrow, 1:12, at what time? 10 a.m. Eastern time, a Giant issue live right here on the New York Giants on SI YouTube page. Make sure that you come and hang out, chill. Like, I want everybody there. I want to hear from you. I want to get engaged with the fans and all of that. I'm really looking forward to it. So until next time, I'm Coach Gene Clemons, and I have a Giant issue.